Chapter 7. Use the best tools. Men and engaging employees should be careful to get the best. Understand you cannot have two good tools to work with, and there is no tool you should be so particular about as living tools. If you get a good one, it's better to keep him than to keep changing. He learns something every day, and you are benefited by the experience he acquires. He is worth more to you this year than last, and he is the last man to part with, provided his habits are good, and he continues faithfully. If, as he gets more valuable, he demands an exorbitant increase of salary on the supposition that you can't do without him, let him go. Whenever I have such an employee, I always discharge him. First, to convince him that his place may be supplied, and second, because he is good for nothing if he thinks he is invaluable and cannot be spared. But I would keep him if possible in order to profit from the results of his experience. An important element in an employee is the brain. You can see bills up, hands wanted, but hands are not worth a great deal without heads. Mr. Beecher illustrates this in this wise. An employee offers his service by saying, "I have a pair of hands and one of my fingers thinks." "This is very good," says the employer. Another man comes along and says he has two fingers that think. That's better." But a third calls in and says that all his fingers and thumbs think. That is better still. Finally, another steps in and says, "I have a brain that thinks. I think all over. I am thinking as well as a working man." "You are the man I want," says the delighted employer. Those men who have brains and experience are therefore the most valuable and not to be readily parted with. It's better for them as well as yourself to keep them at reasonable advances in their salaries from time to time. Chapter 8. Don't get above your business. Young men, after they get through their business training or apprenticeship, instead of pursuing their avocation and rising in their business, will often lie about doing nothing. They say, "I have learned my business, but I am not going to be a hireling. What is the object of learning a trade or profession unless I establish myself?" "Well, have you got capital to start with?" "No, but I'm going to have it." "Well, how are you going to get it?" "I will tell you confidently, I have a wealthy old aunt, and she will die pretty soon. But if she does not, I expect to find some rich old man who will lend me a few thousand to give me a start. If I only get the money to start with, I will do well." There is no greater mistake than when a young man believes he will succeed with borrowed money. Why? Because every man's experience coincides with that of Mr. Astor, who said, "It is more difficult for him to accumulate his first $1,000 than all the succeeding millions that made up his colossal fortune." Money is good for nothing unless you know the value of it by experience. Give a boy $20,000 and put him in business, and the chances are that he will lose every dollar of it before he is a year older. Like buying a ticket in the lottery and drawing a prize. It's easy come, easy go. He does not know the value of it. Nothing is worth anything unless it costs effort. Without self-denial and economy, patience and perseverance, and commencing with capital which you have not earned, you are not sure to succeed in accumulating. Young men, instead of waiting for dead men's shoes, should be up and doing, for there is no class of persons who are so unaccommodating in regard to dying as these rich old people, and it is fortunate for the expectant heirs that it is so. 9 out of 10 rich men of our country today started out in life as poor boys with determined wills, industry, perseverance, economy, and good habits. They went on gradually, made their own money, and saved it, and this is the best way to acquire a fortune. Stephen Girard started his life a poor cabin boy and died worth $9 million. A.T. Stewart was a poor Irish boy, and he paid taxes on $1.5 million of income per year. That was back in 1880. That was a lot of fucking money. That was all the money. John Jacob Astor was a poor farmer boy and died worth 20 millions. Cornelius Vanderbilt began life rowing a boat from Staten Island to New York He presented our government with a steamship worth $1 million and died worth 50 millions. There is no royal road to learning, says the proverb, and I may say it's equally true. There is no royal road to wealth, but I think there is a royal road to both. The road to learning is a royal one. The road that enables the student to expand his intellect and add every day to his stock of knowledge until the pleasant process of intellectual growth, he is able to solve the most profound problems, to count the stars, to analyze every atom of the globe, and to measure the firmament. This is a real highway, and it's the only road worth traveling. So, in regard to wealth, go on in confidence, study the rules, and above all things, human nature. For the proper study of mankind is man, and you will find while expanding the intellect and the muscles, your enlarged experience will enable you every day to accumulate more and more principle, which will increase itself by interest and otherwise, until you arrive at a state of independence. You will find as a general thing that the poor boys get rich and rich boys get poor. For instance, a rich man at his decease leaves a large estate to his family. His eldest son, who have helped him earn his fortune, know by experience the value of money, and they take their inheritance and add to it. The separate portions of the young children are placed at interest, and the little fellows are patted on the head and told a dozen times a day, "You are rich, you will never have to work, you can always have whatever you wish, for you are born with a golden spoon in your ass." The young heir soon finds out what he means, and he has the finest dresses and playthings. He is crammed with sugar candies and almost killed with kindness as he passes from school to school, petted and flattered. He becomes arrogant, self-conceited, abuses his teachers, and carries everything with a high hand. For you people who found Tom the SCAPEGOAT's channel through a MGTOW something or other, this is describing that Elliot Rodger faggot that you guys all like to worship and fucking project onto everyone else. That's not the real deal. I'm gonna have to edit that F word out. He knows nothing of the real value of money, having never earned any, but he knows all about the golden spoon business. At college, he invites his poor fellow students to his room where he wines and dines them. He is cajoled and caressed and called a glorious good fellow because he is so lavish of his money. He gives his game suppers, drives his fast horses, invites his chums to fetes and parties, determined to have lots of good times. He spends the night in frolics and debauchery, hell yeah, and leads off his companions with a familiar song, "We won't go home till morning." Hell yeah. He gets them to join him in pulling signs down, taking gates from their hinges and throwing them into backyards and horse ponds. Fucking rich kids. If the police arrest him, he knocks them down, is taken to the lockup, and joyfully foots the bills. "Ah, my boys," he cries, "what is the use of being rich if you can't enjoy yourself?" Fucking Matt. I don't know if I'm going to give this channel to Matt. I don't know if I want him listening to this shit. I don't think I'm going to. But when I was in Massachusetts, I knew this guy named Matt, and he was a real sack of shit just like this. He might more truly say, if you can't make a fool of yourself, but he is fast, hates slow things, and don't see it. Young men loaded down with other people's money are almost sure to lose all they inherit, and they acquire all sorts of bad habits, which in the majority of cases ruin them in health, purse, and character. In this country, one generation follows another, and the poor of today are rich in the next generation or the third. Their experience leads them on, and they become rich, and they leave vast riches to their young children. These children, having been reared in luxury, are inexperienced and get poor. And after long experience, another generation comes on and gathers up riches again in turn, and thus history repeats itself. And happy is he who by listening to the experience of others avoids the rocks and shoals on which so many have been wrecked. In England, the business makes the man. If a man in that country is a mechanic or working man, he is not recognized as a gentleman. On the occasion of my first appearance before Queen Victoria, the Duke of Wellington asked me what sphere in life General Tom Thumb's parents were in. Let me read that again because I was reading that passively. I didn't retain it. On the occasion of my first appearance before Queen Victoria, the Duke of Wellington asked me what sphere in life and General Tom Thumb's parents were in. Well, his father is a carpenter, I replied. Oh, I heard he was a gentleman, was the response of his grace. In this Republican country, the man makes the business. No matter whether he's a blacksmith, a shoemaker, farmer, banker, or lawyer, so long as his business is legit, he may be a gentleman. So any legitimate business is a double blessing. It helps the man engaged in it, and it also helps others. The farmer supports his own family, but also benefits the merchant or mechanic who needs the products of his farm. The tailor not only makes a living by his trade, but he also benefits the farmer, the clergyman, and others who cannot make their own clothing. But all these cases of men may be gentlemen. The great ambition should be to excel all others engaged in the same occupation. The college student who is about graduating said to an old lawyer, "I have not yet decided which profession I'll follow. Is your profession full?" "Yeah, the basement is much crowded, but there's plenty of room upstairs," was the witty and truthful reply. No profession, trade, or calling is overcrowded in the upper story. Wherever you find the most honest and intelligent merchant or banker, or the best lawyer, the best doctor, the best clergyman, the best shoemaker, carpenter, or anything else, that man is most sought for and has always enough to do. As a nation, Americans are too superficial. They are striving to get rich quickly and do not generally do their business as substantially and thoroughly as they should. But whoever excels all others in his own line, if his habits are good and his integrity undoubted, cannot fail to secure abundant patronage and the wealth that naturally flows. Let your motto then always be Excelsior, for by living up to it, there is no such word as fail. Excelsior. Chapter 9. Learn something useful. Every man should make his son or daughter learn some trade or profession, so that in these days of changing fortunes, of being rich today and poor tomorrow, they may have something tangible to fall back on. This provision might save many persons from misery, who by some unexpected turn of fortune have lost all their means. Chapter 10. Let hope predominate, but be not too visionary. Many persons are kept poor because they are too visionary. Every project looks to them like a certain success, and therefore they keep changing from one business to another, always in hot water, always under the harrow. The plan of counting the chickens before they are hatched is an error of ancient date, but it does not seem to improve by age. Chapter 11. Do not scatter your powers. Engage in one kind of business only, and stick to it faithfully until you succeed or until your experience shows that you should abandon it. A constant hammering on one nail will generally drive it home at last, so it can be clinched. When a man's undivided attention is centered on one object, his mind will constantly be suggesting improvements of value, which would escape him if his brain was occupied by a dozen different subjects at once. Many a fortune has slipped through a man's fingers because he was too engaged in too many occupations at a time. There is good sense in the old caution against having too many irons in the fire at once. And I'm telling you, this is just the best financial advice from a clown. This is a clown. This is 14 minutes. Next recording will be chapter 12.